This is the Outlap F1 podcast featuring America's own Cody, Andy, and Deanna. Your one-stop shop for Formula One news, insights, race previews, and reviews. Join us on the Outlap.
What is up, Outlap F1 Nation? This will be season 6, episode number 44. In honor of Sir Lewis Hamilton, I guess, if we're going to do that. It's our 2024 Las Vegas, baby. Viva Las Vegas GP preview show. And we are back from our little hiatus as the schedule is finally out of weird kinks. It's a triple header. We're going to be with you for the next 3 weeks. We're going to be doing all sorts of stuff. But we are super excited. You've got Andy, and I'm along with the wonderful Cody tonight, as always. Sir, it is good to see you again. How's it been over the break, and how's it hanging tonight, sir?
It's been good. I am glad to be back doing this. I was really busy the last few weeks, so I felt like it went a little quicker than the last 3-week break, but definitely glad to be back, and I know that this is the last little bit of F1 over these several weeks that we're going to get this year. So I am ready to pack it in before it goes away. And I'm sitting here for the next few months, just waiting for it to
come. And then we will go away and feel sad while it's gone. But now it'll be 2025 will be here before we know it. My gosh, everything comes at you quick and fast in this sport. And as always, you can find our show quick and fast, as we like to do as well, on whatever's left of the X platform, Twitter. We're still there. I still put stuff out. I am contemplating moving us over to Blue Sky. I've started my own personal account on Blue Sky. We'll see kind of how that environment goes, but maybe by the end of the year, I might have to move us over just because it seems like that's where a lot of the fans are going. So we want to stay relevant and close to you guys as well. So if you'd like us to do that, feel free to drop us a DM if you would support that or something like that. Just let us know, and we'll try to stay where all the people are, because that's where we want to be. But Instagram, we are there as well. Discord, Reddit, and of course on YouTube at Outlap F1 Podcast is the handle for all of that. You can see our link tree in our show notes to find all of our content wherever we put it. If you enjoy what you are hearing and you like what you're seeing, you can do as the kids do and smash that subscribe button, or you can leave us a like. If you're on your favorite podcasting app, a 5-star review on either Apple Podcast or Spotify would be a tremendous help for us. What does that do? It just helps us get our content to you a little bit quicker, helps us come up a little bit better if people are searching for F1 search results. So that's basically all why everyone asks you to do those things to kind of help us out a little bit with the algorithm to the extent that you can. Thank you so much to Outlap F1 Nation and our continued monetary supporters, including Dean Warwick, Yuri Dolchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Warden, Kevin Kelly, Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, and of course, Jonathan Scott. If you'd like to support us monetarily, we will leave a link in our show notes. It's our anchor page, $1, $5. What does that do? All goes into a couple things. One, keeping relevant with the equipment that's out there. And two, hopefully maybe even purchasing some new stuff so we can try to do some new and fun things. There may be a season finale in a hotel room broadcast coming. Just as a preview out in the forward there. So stay tuned for all of that. We still got to figure out how we're going to do Abu Dhabi, but it's going to be fun. We're going to have fun doing it, all that for sure. And the last thing before we hop into all of the news, there is a boatload of news. The good folks at Manscaped continue to use our code OUTLAP. That's OUTLAP. And what you can do with that is you can get 20% off your total order and get free shipping. So if you're into the products that they offer, feel free to use the code, get some savings. Christmas is coming. My gosh, crazy. We're not even at Thanksgiving, but Christmas is coming. It's coming fast. So if you're into that type of product, feel free to check that out and use our code to get some savings. And we're proud to pass that offer on to you. All right. So we are going to dive into all the news. And I think it all started literally right after the end of the last weekend. The first big story, our 2025 grid is set. Gabriele Bortoleto will be filling the second Sauber seat as it starts to transition into Audi. He will join Nico Hülkenberg. He is released from his McLaren Junior program contract. He is currently the F2 leader, so he has a little bit of more work he wants to do before he moves on up. But unless anything else changes, this will at long last complete the 2025 grid as we know it. Sergio Perez, maybe. And if that changes, there'll be a whole domino effect of changes there, but we'll see. But Cody, what's your thought here? Big thing from Bortoleto. I mean, he won F3 last year. He might win F2 this year. That seems to be a pretty good harbinger of things to come.
Yeah, when this news came out right after the last race weekend, I was thinking, damn, this is going to be one of those like three-week breaks where we're going to just have a ton of news. And that's exactly what happened. But I think it is really good for Gabriel Bortoleto. We've seen a lot of drivers that won F3, went on to win F2, and now they're sitting here in the F1 grid. So it does make sense. I do think it's maybe a little odd considering there are some drivers on the market that do already have Formula One experience. We see that Valtteri Bottas in particular is probably going to be out of a race seat unless something crazy happens at this point. But I can see the other side of it too, how Gabriel Bortoleto is an up-and-coming young driver. In fact, next year we're going to see a ton of young, up-and-coming new drivers on the Formula One grid, which is very exciting to me. So I'm happy to see that added to it. It does stink for drivers like Joe and Bottas that they're now going to be without seats. It does sound like at least Bottas has something potentially lined up, assuming he doesn't make it into another seat this year through some magic. Cough, cough, Red Bull. I personally think that would be the craziest shit if Bottas ended up being number 2 and after all the stuff that's happened before. But I digress. I do think this is a pretty good decision. I think that Bortoleto shows a lot of promise. That promise will only be reinforced if he ends up winning the F2 championship. That's not sealed in though right now. A lot of drivers that we've seen win the F2 category in the past who have ended up in Formula One won it by bigger margins, and he is currently leading by. It's still all to play for there, but he can maybe go in with a little bit more confidence into the last couple of races of the F2 season, knowing that he's already got something sealed in for F1 next year.
Yeah, I mean, my take on Bortoleto is I think he's still very, very raw, but extremely quick and extremely talented. You're going to see, I think, some hopefully overdriving of the car and maybe putting it in some places where it can't. And I think you're also going to see some attrition with him because he's kind of an all or nothing. His driving style seems to be very much an all or nothing type of style. Because I've watched him in F2 and he would either crash out or he'd like get on the podium. It was kind of one or the other. And for a while there, it was kind of really a mix of both. And then in the middle part of the F2 season, he really did find some really good form. And he's been very, very consistent in the sprint moving through the field and consistent in the main race, coming home with really good points to get himself up into the lead of the F2 championship, which is not where he was at the beginning of the season for sure. So he's been riding a very hot streak. And he's going to try to finish that off, obviously, when F2 concludes in Abu Dhabi in a couple weeks' time. But yeah, I think Sauber are getting a very raw talent. And you pair that with a guy like Nico Hülkenberg, that's somebody who you can learn from. I think this is kind of where Sauber are seeing. They're obviously planning not only for next year, where the car, let's be honest, is probably not going to be all that really competitive, but it's really setting up for 2026 and kind of beyond that. So when Audi come in, let's see what can happen. But it does, yeah, it sucks for Bottas. The rumor was I think he may actually end up back at Mercedes in a reserve role or a sim role or something like that if he wants to do it. I know he's got some plans, believe it or not, to do like an Ironman triathlon. I think in the off season, I think the big one is in Hawaii, and I think he's going to go do that. So yeah, I don't think he's going to like be sitting around doing nothing. He is in tremendous physical shape if he's going to go do an Ironman, because those people are a little crazy for me. But Yeah, I think Valtteri's going to be fine. The guy I feel for actually the most is Zhao. He just, never really had a car to ever really show what he could do. I don't think we ever really saw at the F1 level what he really could bring. But, I'm sure he'll catch on somewhere else. I saw a video this week of Logan Sargent testing an Indy car. So, just because it's not F1 doesn't mean you're not going to have a career. And there's Super Formula. There's other places in Asia where you can go and probably race and dominate and do some good things. So, yeah, it is unfortunately that the merry-go-round kind of has to end for some, but it opens some doors for some others. But yeah, at least for now, the 2025 grid is set. And then we get into the really fun news after that. So we concluded the driver lineup in something this was not on my bingo card. And we talked about in the last race how we kind of thought race control kind of had a bad weekend. Apparently had a very bad weekend because Niels Vidic is out as the F1 race director, according to the FIA statement, to air quote, pursue new opportunities. And he's out effective today. So this Las Vegas Grand Prix, only the second time we've raced here, will have the new race director, who is former F2 and F3 race director Rui Marquez, stepping into the seat and pushing the big button to start the races now, as well as handle basically all of the initial decisions before pushing them onto the stewards. The big kind of sub-story to this is the FIA made it pretty clear in their statement that Niels resigned, but that apparently, from a lot of the reporting that's out there from people who've asked a lot of questions, really isn't the case. It seems to kind of stem not so much from just the Brazilian Grand Prix performance or lack thereof or whatever it is, but it's really more about the jewelry enforcement, the swearing enforcement, a big kind of row, I guess, this guy had with Mohammed Ben Sulayem, that obviously Mohammed Ben Sulayem is still in his job and Niels Vidic is out. So guess who won that battle? But wow, this one was not in my bingo card, Cody. What's your thought here?
I definitely wasn't expecting it, especially since we already lost, the double switching race director thing. I think that was last year where that ended. And it does seem kind of like since, the end of 2021, it's kind of turning into a bit of a revolving door for that race director position now. Guy who's come in, you said it was Rui Marquez. He's got plenty of experience. I'm sure he will fit into this role very nicely. But I do think that the controversy about did he resign, did he get fired, I think that is a little humorous. I can't imagine why F1 would, put out a statement that he resigned if it wasn't on, good terms. Because if he was fired, then he's going to come out and say that he was fired. So it kind of makes them look a little silly if they're claiming it was, on his end that this all happened, and really it was the Formula One decision. But we're going to get to see how the race direction changes for the last few races of this season. I have to imagine that, as you said, there was some stuff going on with all the weird rule enforcement that we've seen lately with swearing and the jewelry and all that. There definitely has been some questionable decisions made on the race directing end this season. There was quite a lot of it in the Brazilian Grand Prix that we talked about. Sao Paulo Grand Prix. With the late timing for things like red flags, that really threw some people for a loop and, looked questionable from the outside looking in with, I don't think there was anything with the British bias. To the average fan, it does look questionable. And especially, the one that we talked about with Hulkenberg being kind of out of his car on the side of the track, and red had actually been called yet at that point, other than just the yellow flags. Doesn't look good. So maybe that was just kind of the last straw. Maybe they'd already been, I have to imagine they were already considering giving him the boot. And that was just, the last little bit in it.
Yeah, I mean, you have that against the backdrop of this letter. I didn't even put this in the document, but the GPDA, remember them, George Russell, who is the chairman of the current form of the GPDA, penned a letter to the FIA president basically about all the swearing stuff and basically told him, look, start treating us like adults here. We're not children. We don't need to be, spoken to in those types of terms, which was a very strongly worded thing to come out again, while of course everybody was not racing. But you have that, and then this decision, and it is kind of one of those, something to me does not add up. Other than maybe Niels Vidic was just stressed out, and maybe that's what'll come out in the end of it. But if it's not that, it's very weird to have a change this significant to within the FIA with 3 rounds to go. I mean, why not just wait till the end of the year and say Niels goes out to pasture, we thank him for his service, blah blah blah. It doesn't arouse any of the questioning that's going on, and the fact is we don't really know. There's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of people saying things off the record to reporters who are turning around and trying to say that it's fact. We don't really know what the story is, but I think at the end of the day, I don't think it's a very good look for the FIA president, it's another thing, that we could just kind of chalk up to, you probably didn't handle this as good as you could have. Add this, I think this is number 5 on this season. But anyway, well, we're going to see what the new guy does. If you are a little worried about the new guy coming into Las Vegas, this was the same race director as who just did last weekend, the Macau Grand Prix, which is like the Las Vegas track on steroids. So, I mean, in terms of doing race direction of a street track, this guy's got experience. He's done it for a long time. There was no shortage of red flags at Macau, and there was no shortage of quick red flags. So if there is a red flag situation, I'm fairly confident we're not going to see a 2-lap delay like we did last time. But yeah, lots of questions. And if anything comes else out of it, we will obviously bring that to you as we learn it. All right. And that was only one of many changes. So there are lots of other things still to talk about. Aston Martin has also announced that Dan Fallows, who was a big get for them coming over from Red Bull, will no longer be serving as the technical director of the team. However, he will, air quote, remain within the group, as is the statement from Aston Martin read. To me, this sounds like, hey, we have a very expensive new guy coming in, and Dan is really highly compensated, and cost cap problems being what they are. Dan, you're just going to sit over here and do this, so you don't kind of guess the cost cap, but our little fun signing of the best aerodynamicist who ever lived can come in and work and get paid what he wants. That's my read on it. Cody, what's your thought?
It does track that with Adrian Newey coming into the team, that maybe they feel that Dan Fallows does not need to remain in that position anymore. I think actually Adrian Newey, with how much he's going to be getting paid, he might actually even contribute to the cost cap, because it's top, I forget how many people in the team in terms of salary, the drivers included, do not count toward the cost cap. So Adrian Newey might not even come toward that. But if that puts Dan Fallows in a position where he would count against the cost cap, maybe they want to put him in, like you said, another position where they're going to be able to spend that money on somebody or something else. Also, have to imagine he's the technical director of the Aston Martin team that is not performing very well this year. They have slumped very hard since last year. Last year they looked very promising in the beginning of the year, slumped off later on in the year, and then this year they have not been anywhere near the performance that they were last year. You could chalk that up to other teams passing them by, like McLaren, Ferrari, Mercedes, but they had something good going, and they failed to build off of that. We've seen time and time again where the Aston Martin team has brought upgrades to the car, found that they didn't perform nearly as well as they had in their simulations, and they actually go backwards to take those upgrades off the car. So maybe there's not a whole lot of confidence in how the technical side of the team is going at the moment, and they're looking to shake it up, even more beyond just figuring out, which is a massive shake up.
Yeah, and the other thing is you might want to just make sure that Adrian Newey has, his space and his room to shape the team that he wants. And if you've got another guy with a big personality who's in the role of technical director, that could, you could butt some heads there, and maybe that it's just kind of a better thing overall for the team. But yeah, I don't know. it didn't seem like it was an indictment of Dan Fallows from everything that I was reading. It was just kind of surprising that, here was what was a big signing when he came over and he had to serve the gardening leave and do all that. And, now he's online. But it's not the first time we've seen guys come over from other teams to new teams that don't always, work out right away. It's part of the risk of when you do that. You're hoping it's going to work, and sometimes it just doesn't always cook. But I do think Aston Martin, I think they're just kind of letting Adrian, they're going to give Adrian his wide, whatever he wants to do. If he wants to show up at noon and work till 9:00 and have, hippie music on in the background, I don't think Aston Martin's going to care as long as the car that he designs is wicked fast. So I get a funny feeling it may be a fun environment to be working with Adrian, considering he's got all the carte blanche in the world there. But yeah, it was just one of those things that also got announced during this little break. All right. So the next part of this is, now we've talked a lot of times as we're building up to the new season, and I usually like to call it kind of Christmas in February, where you get to see each team do its own version of unveiling of the car. And it used to be when you actually would see the car, you could actually try to make some conclusions about the ideas and the engineering of the car. Well, fast forward into these regulations where everybody bought all of these base model show cars and put liveries on them, and that's basically all you see. So all of the car launches are effectively livery launches as it is. Two, they're very, very expensive for all of these teams to do, because the teams that have a bigger marketing budget obviously make more of an event out of it, and other teams basically throw out a picture and say, here's our livery, this is what we're doing, we'll see you in 3 weeks of testing. So there's not been any consistency. And I think one of the things that Liberty has tried to do with stuff like this is try to bring it under a banner, make it consistent, package it, sell it, and let's see if we can generate some buzz off of it. So announcement came out. Apparently that's what they're going to do with the team launches next year. Because this is also the 75th anniversary of Formula One, they're going to host the first ever launch event in the London O2 Theatre, which will have all 10 teams, all of the drivers, all of the team principals, plus a litany of entertainment yet to be announced to kick off the sport's 75th anniversary year. It will definitely probably be streaming on all of the YouTube channel that F1 has. I don't think you're going to have to pay to see this in any sort of way. It looks like they're trying to make this as accessible as possible. I've heard that the way the tickets got dropped did not go very well if you were just the regular Joe trying to buy a ticket. I did see the resale market got a little crazy on it, but we've seen that happen before with a lot of stuff. But, that's just kind of how it goes. But Cody, thoughts on this? No more 2-week thing, all in one event. Better, worse? What's your take?
Ticket prices going crazy in Formula One? No, we don't know anything about that. Nothing like the race that they're about to go to. I think we're gonna have to see how this goes for me to decide if I like it going this way or not. I think Liberty Media probably looked at this and sensed an opportunity to, make this into a big show. Really drum up that excitement for Formula One before the season starts. And they thought, doing this big spectacle would be a good way to do it. Being that it's the 75th anniversary, it's a good time to test something like this out. And I think generally it will be a good thing, especially for the teams that you said have a smaller budget for putting on this type of show. I think we will see more from those teams, which is good, more representation. It does feel a little weird that it's going to be all in one day, because part of what I like about it in February is since it's kind of like spaced out with different teams doing their thing on different days. You get like a little bit of like a little taste throughout the entire month leading into testing, and now it's just going to be, all at once. So, I kind of like getting my little taste every day going into that, but we'll just have to see how the show goes. Do I think we're going to see more of an actual representation of what these cars are going to be beyond just a livery reveals? I don't know. It depends. They must have, I can't remember. Is it going to happen pretty much right before testing, or is it going to be earlier on?
It's, I think, like 2 or 3 weeks before.
Okay.
So,
So I think it's probably then going to be more of the same with just the Liberty reveal. That's a little too far away from testing to actually see a real car. So if you were hoping that out of this event you were going to see, more actual design cars that are representative of what we're going to see on track, you're probably going to be disappointed. But at least it'll be a spectacle, and I will definitely be watching.
yeah, I mean, it does take some of the black market of the car reveal away, which I think inherently is a good thing, because I cannot tell you how many times the launch is in an hour and here's the leaked picture of the car, that might or might not be real, and then you don't know, and then it turns out to be real, and then it's like, okay, well, that was kind of disappointing, because what's the point of lifting the cover up if you already know what's underneath it? So in that, it's probably good. You're not going to see any. I'm almost positive you're not going to see any actual real cars, because it is so close to testing. I don't think you're going to see anything of technical prowess until the morning of testing. So, like, the hour before testing is when you're going to get that. If you want to get your pictures with the funny arrows pointing at suspension and rear wing and front wing and that kind of stuff, you're probably going to have to wait till then to probably see it. I actually didn't mind the little snippets in the morning, like wake up and like, oh, here's Sauber, here's McLaren, here's, Ferrari, here's Red Bull, doing it. And they all kind of did it in their own kind of unique way. You got a little bit of personality out of it. I think this is going to be a lot more packaged. It's going to be a lot harder to read what the teams are feeling, because I think they're going to try to prop it up as optimistic across the board. But if you are keen to watching something like this, like I will be, I would watch body language. Watch the body language of the drivers when they're not getting talked to directly on camera. What are they doing? Are they interested? Do they look kind of nervous? Pay also attention to the team principals and what they say and kind of how they say it, because if they're trying to spin, they're going to know if their car is in at least ready before testing. They might not know if it's quick or not, but they're going to know whether or not like something bad was happening, like, the first year of Haas, where it was literally put together like 5 minutes before it was supposed to hit the track type of situation. So those are the kind of the things I think you're going to, if you're looking to try to, if you're looking for a predictive value on an event like this, that's probably where I would look. Other than that, I know there's going to be a lot of pop, circumstances, lasers, lights, bright lights, flashy things, and musical acts that we may or may not like, depending on who they pick. So, yeah, it just kind of is. We'll see if it works. You try something. If it doesn't work, it will be the last time you see it, I guarantee you. If it gets panned, Liberty Media they're out there. They're a social media company. They understand that if they're getting panned for this, they're not going to do it again, or they'll change it. So it's something to tinker with. Let's see what happens. So I might as well go into it with a positive mindset, at least to see. But okay. Speaking of actual technical changes, we did get another bit of news. The Alpine team, and we've talked about this kind of at length actually on this show, where they were evaluating whether or not they want to keep the Renault power unit. They then decided that they were going to check the Renault power unit, and now they've made it official. They have signed with Mercedes, so Mercedes will supply Alpine with a power unit and gearbox moving into the 2026 regulations. The hot rumor with this is that even possibly that the Alpine name might be going away, and it could be replaced with high-tech branding later on down the line. Nobody is saying that very loudly, but we do know that the Alpine team principal is now Ollie Oakes, who was the high-tech guy. So we'll have to see kind of where this all goes, but it does kind of suck again that Renault is going to be completely out of the sport, and but perhaps it's progress. We've seen Alpine show some better form of late. Maybe this is on the road to recovery.
Yeah, I'm really still thinking that the double podium thing was a bit of a fluke. So it might be just like a flash in the pan, and we're gonna go back to seeing them start with this race being so great again. But who knows? It's definitely very strange that Alpine, which is known as pretty much the Renault sporting brand, is no longer going to be using Renault engines. who knows, they might actually have more success with Mercedes engines, especially going into these new regulations where all the engines are going to be shaken up. Mercedes was cream of the crop during the last engine change. So it might end up working out for them. It does kind of seem, though, with the rumors about the branding changing to high-tech, that maybe Renault is going to continue to try to distance themselves from this Formula One project until they, maybe they're just going to sell it all together. We're just going to have to see. But I do feel bad for anyone who was working for Renault, working on this Formula One engine project, that is now not involved in that anymore. We saw a lot of those fine folks protesting at a couple races leading up to the announcement about the engines, and I'm sure they're going to find other work, if not within Renault, at some other very strong automotive company. But it does kind of stink, and it was so exciting going into these new regulations that we were going to see so many manufacturers involved in the sport on the engine side. These new regulations seem to be doing exactly what was hoped, which was bringing new manufacturers into the sport. And just when you add a couple, you got Ford coming in, you got Honda coming back, getting this new support. And then one of the long-standing ones has been involved in the sport on the engine side for a long time. It's been a long time since they won a team championship, but they were involved with the first round of Red Bull success, powering the Red Bull cars that were driven by Sebastian Vettel to his 4 consecutive championships. And now they're just kind of slinking out, I guess, is the way that I feel about it. They're just kind of going out with a fizzle, which is a little disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be very interesting to see where, if anywhere, the IP goes. And you mentioned them selling. The rumor that I have heard was that, oh, by the way, and this is going to be connected to our next story, now that 2 of the opponents in the Andretti saga, one being Michael Andretti no longer being there, and now, as I go into the next story, Greg Maffei from Liberty, who was vehemently opposed to the Andretti bid, is also going to be stepping away. That now this Alpine intellectual property might just end up in the hands of, let's say, GM, who may integrate it into Cadillac, who may try to put it into their 2026/2028 bid. Does that potentially create a path for Andretti here? Because as I've already mentioned, Greg Maffei from Liberty Media is going to be stepping away. Liberty chairman John Malone is going to fill the role at least for the end of the year. Maffei is going to be involved as an advisor to support the transition. But I think you've got 2 of the oil and water things that never mixed in Michael Andretti and Greg Maffei out of their respective roles. You're going to have, I think, businessmen who understand that rising tides lift all boats. And I think if you're looking for an Andretti bid and you're looking for an 11th team, I don't know if they're going to quite get there for 2026, but I do think if they come in with 2028 and they're ready to go and they look like they're going to be on it and the FIA says it's good to go, I think you may see that start to change, especially if they've got the engine IP, from Renault, because they're going to start with something that's already pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. It does kind of make you wonder what kind of talks go on behind closed doors with, Andretti stepping down from leading pretty much his company and Greg Maffei leaving the president and CEO position at Liberty Media. It makes you wonder if other, high-ranking folks at Liberty Media were looking at Greg Maffei's opposal to the Andretti entry and being like, how can you want to do this? Everyone thinks it's popular. Fans are screaming for it. Everyone thinks this is going to be a great move, and you're just so against it happening. On the other side of it, you have Michael Andretti, who really wants to get into the sport, but seems to have a knack for rubbing people in Formula One and the FIA the wrong way. Maybe just his way about, going about business of trying to get them in and, making it seem kind of forceful and putting down Formula One when they say no, which in my opinion was due. But it does seem like now that they've both stepped out of their respective positions, that yes, there's other people within those organizations who really want to make this happen, and the leaderships of both sides were whether they wanted to or not. In Greg Maffei's case, he seemed to openly oppose it. Michael Andretti maybe just wasn't going about it the right way. But now with them out of that picture, I think we are going to see the Andretti bid make it into Formula One, because there's not so much opposition there now, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, if you've taken away the things that made it difficult, again, it makes too much sense not to do it. So, I mean, but nothing has been formal. I mean, the only thing that we know that happened is Michael has stepped away, Greg Maffei has stepped away. I don't think, like I said, I think we're probably getting too late in the game to then to ask Andretti to ramp up when I'm sure they haven't ramped down. I mean, they've always been saying that we continue our work, quote, at pace and all that. But I'm pretty sure their target is a 27, 28, entry. But that having been said, if somebody was to say you got the green light for 26, I'm sure they're going to take that. But I do think there is now a path. Where before I saw little to no path, and then Andretti tried to drag him in front of Congress, and Andretti Global tried to, take him to court. I don't think you were ever going to force the hand there. So it's probably better to get the combatants out of the room and let some rational, cooler heads prevail, and let's see if this gets done. But I think this is a step in the right direction. If you are one who was looking for Andretti Global to come in, these two seemingly not connected events, I think are steps in the right direction. All right, our last two stories before we hop into our Grand Prix this weekend involve the calendar, and these were some things that we've commented many times about how the calendar just sometimes don't make no sense. Well, looks like they're trying at least to make some inroads on that. The first story, Monaco, whether you love it or hate it or whatever, it's going to be around. It's been around forever. It's going to continue to be around. It has re-upped its contract with F1 to stay on the calendar until 2031. However, there is a twist to this. Historically, the F1 calendar was always built around Monaco. Monaco was the fourth weekend in May. You started there, and you built your entire calendar around Monaco from there. That is no longer going to be the case. Monaco has agreed to shift the weekend of the Grand Prix back 1 week, so it will now be the first weekend in June, starting with the 2026 season. So it will decouple from the same day as the Indy 500, which is one of the biggest, if not the biggest race in the United States during the year. So we don't get our Super Sunday anymore in the U.S., but it does potentially allow, because it would probably be an off weekend in the F1 calendar, for possibly down the line some Indy 500 participation, or at least some Indy 500 showings from the F1 folks if they want to attend the Indy 500. So, Cody, thoughts on this change to the calendar?
I am going to miss the Super Sunday because I really historically have enjoyed getting up early for the Monaco race, watching that, having a little break, having some coffee and lunch, watching the Indy 500, which I love, and then, casually keeping up with the NASCAR race, the Coca-Cola 600, as it happens in the evening. I am going to miss that. But I do agree with you that it is very exciting that there's a likelihood that with the Indy 500 and Monaco Grand Prix not being on the same weekend, and hopefully, going to be an off weekend for, like you said, there's a good chance it's going to be an off weekend for Formula One when the Indy 500 is going on, and vice versa. There might be an off weekend for Indy when the Monaco Grand Prix is going on. Obviously, you're not going to see anybody from IndyCar hopping in to a one-off in Monaco. I think that is definitely never going to happen. but it would be really, really cool to see a few brave Formula One drivers going over to IndyCar for a one-off in the Indy 500. That is still an extremely prestigious race in the scene, and I'm sure that there are a lot of Formula One drivers who, with the opportunity to do so, would like to participate in that. And that, to me, would actually be fantastic for IndyCar as well. It would drum up the popularity, at least for that one race weekend. And if you drum up even more popularity for the Indy 500, maybe people start paying attention to what's going on in IndyCar outside of that race. And I think that would only be better.
Yeah, I still think the biggest thing for IndyCar is how do you get it around you? How do you promote the rest of your championship that's not the 500? Because the 500 has its own standing entity. It has its own kind of set of rules. It kind of almost sits apart from the championship, even though it is an integral part of that championship, which I think makes it very much a unique event. But and I do love everything about the month of May at Indianapolis, just from qualifying and the unique way that you have to do that, to maybe bumping yourself in or not making the field, seeing real jeopardy and real drama, and seeing big names sometimes not make it. We saw Graham Rahal get bumped. We saw Fernando Alonso in one of his attempts get bumped, from the Indy 500 field there. So if there is an F1 commitment from a driver, it's going to have to be for more than, it's definitely going to be a scheduling thing to try to make it work, because one, you probably need to get as much practice time as you can to really ramp up to the Indy 500, because I don't think even a guy as great as Alonso didn't just come in and do it in the first 5 laps. He had to ramp up to it. So it is going to, there's still a scheduling bug that I think is going to have to work out, but I do love the fact that these are probably not going to be on the same weekend anymore, because each event can now kind of stand out on its own. Now, I'm with you as a selfish American who loves that weekend. I will miss the Super Sunday because it was perfect timing. Monaco would end, the post-race stuff would end, and the Indy pre-race stuff would just kind of get into the peak of it, and it was just one into the next. And then, if you wanted to watch the first few laps of the Coke 600, you could do that, or you could do what I do, which was take a 2-hour nap, come back, and then watch the last 100 laps of the Coke 600, because that's really, I think, all you have to watch with NASCAR most of the time now anyway, with all the stages. But that's a different discussion for a different podcast. That's not why anybody's here. They don't want to hear my NASCAR thoughts. But anyway, yeah, I mean, we'll see kind of how this works. I do hope that it does kind of fix some of the weird scheduling things where you've got, a race in Europe, and then they go Monaco, and then they go to Canada. And we're going to talk about Canada in a minute. They're going to try to fix that as well and try to make the calendar line up a little bit better. And I think that's just a perfect transition. So the other announcement that came out is that the Canadian Grand Prix, which has historically had that early June spot, they're going to move its date up and into May from 2026 onwards to help with the calendar reorganization. So it seems like you're going to see a North American swing early, with Miami and Canada more than likely being connected, either with a week break or back-to-back. It seemed to make sense. And then you're going to see a much more European swing, probably with Spain, whether that's the street race or whether it's at Catalunya, Monaco, and then get into the European season proper, which also I think makes sense. Makes no sense to go to Miami, get on a plane, come back to do Spain, get on a plane again, go do Canada, then come back, do something else. It was just kind of, it was getting ridiculous. So I think these are two moves as a whole that I think make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree with the trying to better group races together by location, because we've said it on the show before how Formula One makes this big point in the media about that they're trying to move toward more sustainable technologies in terms of the car's fuels and the hybrid technology used in them. But really, that's a drop in the bucket. These cars aren't going around the track all the time. It's 20 cars. You're not really saving the planet by doing that. What would actually make a sizable difference is less travel all across the globe. because you're actually properly grouping the races together by region. I am 100% on board with that side of things if that's really the direction that it's going. And it does make sense to pair Canada with Miami. I just wish that they would have waited one more year to do it, because I think I jinxed it talking about how in 2026, the Canadian Grand Prix was going to fall on my birthday, and how awesome it would be to go see that on my birthday. And now putting it up the year that would have happened. So that part kind of sucks, but other than that,
so would you get Monaco instead?
Oh, God, I mean, maybe. If it's the first weekend, I would probably miss it by just a little bit. Go to the second weekend for that to ever occur. And I'm not sure. I mean, no matter how much I want, I'm not sure I could have to put together going to cool as that would be. But apparently it's not nearly as expensive as going to the Las Vegas Grand Prix. So who knows what's in the future.
It all depends on where you want to stay and how posh you want to go. I mean, it's like anything. There's a way to do all of these on a budget if you really want to commit to it. It's just, you have to be very committed to it. But
if you're going to Monaco, why do anything on budget?
Well, that's the point. I mean, that's exactly it. Like, why would you want to do that? Get all the way there and then be pinching every penny. But people have done that. I know that. But anyway, you take in what you get when it comes on the calendar. But yeah, I do think it makes sense to move. We could not continue with the weirdness of the calendar, especially in Canada was kind of the pain point that I think they had to negotiate, because I think they had it in their contract that Canada wanted that date, one, for weather purposes, because look, let's be honest, you've got kind of a narrow window of warm weather in that part of Canada where it's warm enough. And even sometimes we've seen it be really cold and wet and gray. That can still happen. You're moving that even forward. You might see more wet and gray because it's now more, into spring. But, we'll see kind of how that goes. But you can have beautiful days in May as well. It's kind of like if you wanted to have a race here in Chicago, we talked about that. You have kind of a narrow window of time where you can actually kind of really get it off, pull it off without, weather being a major, major factor. But I think overall that this is good. I like the fact that they're trying to address this calendar. It's been a problem. If they're going to try to expand it anymore, which I'm not a big fan of, but if they are, you got to make it make sense. You can't have it do what they're doing now because it's just driving everybody crazy. Burnout is a big thing. And if you've made it all the way to the end of this, thank you. We hope we haven't burned you out, but we're going to take a quick break. We'll re-rack. Come on back. We're going to get into the Las Vegas track facts. Now we actually have some stats we can actually talk about this year. We'll talk a little bit about the weather. That is going to be a factor, not necessarily with what's coming out of the sky, but the temperatures are going to be on the cold side. So we will see where that plays we'll take advantage of that. And then we'll talk a little bit about predictions and what we think is going to happen over the course of the weekend. And we'll tell you where and when to find your sessions, because they are all weird, weird times. Think Japan, think Australia. That's your game plan if you are in the U.S., because it's going to be a late night / early morning. But come on back. We'll get into all of it.
You are listening to the Outlap F1 podcast, and we'll be right back after this quick pit stop. Grab your flu powder, broomstick, or apparate to your favorite audio streaming service to join the discussion on Hogwarts, a podcast, where Dan and his friends have in-depth chapter-by-chapter breakdowns of each Harry Potter novel. Join the group as they dive into the magical world and discuss plot points, analyze character development, and occasionally go off the rails. Whether you're a muggle who's new to the series or a pure-blood wizard who won't need a remember-all, Hogwarts, a podcast, brings everyone to the Great Hall for a magical discussion. Hogwarts, a podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back in. This is Season 6, episode number 44 of the Outlap F1 podcast. It's our 2024 Las Vegas GP preview show. You've got Andy and I'm along with Cody tonight. And we just caught you up on all of the news that happened within the last couple of weeks. Boy, was there a lot there. So feel free to check that out. I think I'm going to do separate videos. So it's a separate video on YouTube, It'll be one audio podcast as always, but feel free to check out that other video if you want to get caught up on your news. But it is time, as we like to do, to drop the green flag on the weekend and get us prepped for the weekend. And we always do that by talking about where we're racing. And we're going to get into our Pirelli track facts brought to us by the good folks at Pirelli Motorsport. Cody, tell us about, I don't know if it has a name. It's Autodromo something Las Vegas, but the Las Vegas circuit.
All right. For just the second time, at least in recent memory, Formula One is heading to the Las Vegas Strip for the Las Vegas Strip circuit. And they're going there just a couple weeks before Andy and I are going there. But located in, as you might expect, Las Vegas, Nevada, in the United States. Number of laps for the Grand Prix is 50, and the length of the circuit is 3.853 miles. That's 6.201 kilometers. And it consists of 17 turns. Tire selection from Pirelli for this race is going to be the C3, C4, and C5 tire compounds. And the track characteristics from Pirelli are a 2 out of 5 for traction, 1 out of 5 for asphalt grip, a 2 out of 5 for asphalt abrasion, 5 out of 5 for track evolution, 4 out of 5 for tire stress, 3 out of 5 for braking, 2 out of 5 for lateral load, and a 1 out of 5 for downforce. The qualifying lap record is going to go to the only qualifying lap pole set, and that was set last year by Charles Leclerc with a 1 minute 32.726 seconds, while the race lap record is going to go to Oscar Piastri, who set it last year, with a 1 minute 35.490 seconds. Most wins at this track is going to, for the moment, be just the one win, which was done by Max Verstappen last year, and that sole constructor win goes to Red Bull. What's the circuit like, Andy?
All right, located in the heart of Las Vegas. This 6.2 kilometer, 17 turn street circuit winds its way past iconic locations like Caesar's Palace, the Bellagio, and the Venetian, with average speeds expected to reach or match Monza, otherwise known as F1's Temple of Speed. There promises to be plenty of action and overtaking. And this circuit clipped last year. We saw lots of overtaking. But one thing for sure that is going to be a factor throughout the course of the weekend is the weather. And normally you would think it's out in the desert. It's going to be hot. We've got Qatar here, right? Wrong. This is the part of the year where it gets cold in the desert at night. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give the weather basically, like, I'm going to say Thursday, Friday, and Friday, Saturday, because it's all happening overnight in the U.S., regardless of where you are in the world. So the Thursday, Friday for practice is going to be clear skies, 64 degrees during the day, but going all the way down into the 40s, which is only 8 degrees above freezing temperatures. So it's going to be very cold. Winds in the light and variable. No chance of rain on Thursday or Friday. As for the Friday, Saturday running for qualifying, mostly clear skies, a high of 67, so that seems reasonable, but a low of 48, so not quite as cold. That's actually important. Those 8 degrees could mean something. Winds light and variable. Again, no chance of rain here. And for the Saturday race, the warmest of the 3 days, only going to talk about the low temperature because that's 55. So 15 degrees difference between Friday practice and Sunday race. That long run in FP2 might not even be worth it. I don't know. We're going to have to see. What are the conditions going to do? But the winds will be a little higher. Winds out of the west-northwest, 5 to 10. Only a 4% chance of rain. It's not going to rain. You're not going to see an inter-tire. I'd be really shocked if you did.
8 degrees over freezing. Still better than what we got here in Chicago because it snowed today.
Yeah. It's supposed to snow tomorrow. First one of the year always makes driving. Chicagoans are good about driving in the snow. It's just you always have to recalibrate, and that first recalibration, depending on who you are, can be painful. So take care of each other. Give yourself extra time if you're on the roads in Chicago for the next couple of days, because we don't want to see fender benders. Those are never fun. All right, so we're going to get into our qualifying and our race predictions, and we shall start as we are apt to do. It's the Choose Your Champion predictions game. We're going to start with our pole sitter. The 2023 pole sitter was Charles Leclerc from Ferrari. So, Cody, what do you think is going to happen with this year's race? Who do you got on the pole?
I think we are going to see another Charles Leclerc pole. Charles Leclerc is one of the best ever at one-lap pace. and he got the pole here last year and seems to be driving an even better car this year. Ferrari has been performing very well. He's already got several wins under his belt for this season, and I think everything that we're seeing points toward a successful race for Ferrari. So I'm going to go with Charles.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is probably, of the tracks that are left on the calendar, the strongest for just the Ferrari setup in general. It's as close to Monza as it is. They were really, really good in Monza. They were really, really good in Baku, too, which is also where I kind of think I see a lot of correlation between the setup of that track and this track, especially with the ridiculous long straights. I've got Charles Leclerc, I think, taking the pole. The guy knows how to make a qualifying lap. I think he's got the goods here, so I've got Leclerc for pole position. As for the lap times, and this can be sometimes darts a dartboard too. We don't really know where this is going to go. New cars, maybe better tires, but really cold temperatures. So the quali lap time last year was that 132.726. Cody, what you got for a lap time here?
Seems that throughout this season, going about half a second, give or take, faster than last year's time seems to have been a pretty safe bet when the weather has been the same between races. And yeah, it is going to be really cold in Las Vegas, but it's probably never going to be wet in Las Vegas for the race. So I'm going to go with that. Maybe a little more than half a second faster than last year. With a 1 minute 32.110.
All right, very good. My lap time is going to be quicker than yours, and I'm going to tell you a couple different reasons why. I've got a 131.905, and here's why I think they're actually going to go faster. One, they've got a book on what this track did last year. They saw what the evolution was. I think that's a big deal. These engineers are great. They're all going to work on the sims. I think the simulator is going to be a lot more accurate, so I think the cars in general are going to be faster. The other thing we're not going to have, at least I would be shocked if, second I say I'm shocked about anything that happens in the sport, I shouldn't be, but I don't think we're going to see a 5-hour delay between FP1 and FP2 because they have literally concreted over all of the drain covers. I've seen it myself. I've seen pictures of it. No loose drain covers, no welding of any of that down. So I think they learned their lesson from that. So if the sessions run normally, I think you'll see a lot more evolution early and therefore faster lap times. So I've got a 131.905 for the lap time there. All right. So we will move into our race predictions. The podium, and I forgot until I saw this. They actually wheeled them in a limo and took them to the Bellagio fountain. I think they're going to do the same thing this year too. Was Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, and remember when Sergio Perez was good? Yeah, it can happen. It happened in Las Vegas last year. He got on the podium, a double podium. Only prevented a Red Bull 1-2 in the last lap pass by the aforementioned Charles Leclerc. So, a whole lot of stuff going on here for sure. So, Cody, what's your thought on a race podium? Who do you got taking it, and what's the order?
I think that Charles Leclerc is going to be able to convert a pole position that I hope he gets into a race win. For second place, this might be me more wanting and willing for it to happen than the likelihood of it happening. But I'm going to go with Verstappen in P2 and Norris in P3. I think the last couple championship clinches for Max Verstappen have been kind of underwhelming. In 2022, we had the race in Japan where it was wet and no one really knew if he clinched the championship or not because no one's really sure if there was points awarded. And then last year, he clinched the championship after a very dominant season at a sprint race, which was a little underwhelming because there probably wasn't as many people watching it. However, I think if he outscores Norris in this race, he will clinch the Drivers' Championship. And I think Las Vegas, with all of the pomp and circumstance that's going to go with that, would be the perfect place for them.
So you've got Leclerc, Max 2. Who do you got for P3?
Norris.
Okay. All right. So he's going to chase championship home. Oh, I don't know that I want it to go down like that. I do think Max is going to win the world championship. I think that's pretty much fait accompli, but I don't know that I have it here per se necessarily, but I do have Charles Leclerc taking the win. I do think this is, as a McLaren fan, my focus is now fully on the constructors, which is the one thing that they still can go win, which would be a big, big deal for them. So they're going to have to bring it. I do think the fight with Ferrari is going to be fairly strong throughout the course of this race. But I go back to who was good in Baku. And the two that fought each other for all those laps in Baku was Charles Leclerc and Oscar Piastri. And I think they might just do it again here. And I do think that it might come down to one of those strange, weird overtake moves near the end of the race. And I do think the Ferraris are better on their tires. So I'm going to give this one to Charles Leclerc. I'm going to say he's probably going to take the win. I am going to say Oscar Piastri comes home in second because I don't think it's about the drivers anymore. I think it's about the constructors. And if Oscar can get up there, I think McLaren are going to let him keep it at this point. And I do look, I mean, I have no book on Lando Norris at this track last year because it only lasted 3 laps. He crashed out. But I think overall, is generally pretty good on the street track. So long as they don't get caught in Q1, they'll be fine. But I've got Lando coming home in P3. So Leclerc, Piastri, Norris is my race podium. All right. So as we talked about earlier, the fastest lap and the driver last year was Oscar Piastri with a 1:35.490. Cody, who do you have setting this year's fastest lap, and who do you have doing it?
I've got Carlos Sainz setting the fastest lap. I think Ferrari and that chase for the constructors that they still could get. I think they're going to be fighting for every point that they can get. I think Sainz might just be in a position where he go for the fastest lap. So I got Carlos Sainz setting the fastest lap for Ferrari, and I got him doing it with a 1:35.316.
All right, very good. I do think Max Verstappen is going to be a factor, and I do think. But I harkened back to Baku. I know he kind of struggled there, but I don't think the car is as bad as it was there. So he's definitely going to be a role in this. And I think one of those roles is he's going to be looking for that fastest lap point, just because that's what Max does. So I think he's probably going to go out and get it. 1:35.128 is my predicted lap time. All right. So for our bonus picks, I went ahead and made the picking. I tried to pick Las Vegas themed numbers. And I know 7 is a lucky number. I know 11 is significant in blackjack. And I would have loved to have picked 11 and 21. But we don't have 21 drivers. So get that Andretti grid on the grid so I can do my prop bet or my bonus picks next time. But anyway, so I'm going to do P20 instead. So P7, P11, P20 are the bonus picks. I'll go first with this one. I've got George Russell coming home in P7. I do think the colder temperatures will suit the Mercedes car, but they have such a thin working window. It might actually be too cold for them. So we'll have to see, but they may struggle a little bit here. So I've got George Russell coming home P7. P11, I think Williams are going to put as big of a fight as they can. They are here, by the way. Their cars are put back together. They released, I love the fact that they did this. I wish more teams would do this. They put out a video showing literally kind of how they rebuilt the car and how they stripped the car down to the bucket of the chassis and you know how they assess what is salvageable and what isn't. It's just, if you're into that kind of stuff, it is like engineer porn as far as I'm concerned. So go check that out. It's on the Williams social media feed. It's about an 8-minute long video. It's definitely worth your time. But I've got Franco Colapinto coming home P11 and P20. It does me no joy to do this because I love the guy. But Valtteri Bottas, personality and all, will probably have a very frustrating race. So I've got him coming home in P20 just based on where the car is, not where I think he is. Cody, what you got here?
I've got, I'd say, Sergio Perez falling from the podium that he got last year and finishing in P7 for this one. I don't think they're going to score points, but I do think there is going to be a little bit of a boost in confidence, perhaps from the Alpine drivers and team after Brazil. So I've got Gasly coming in P11, just missing out on the points. And, you know, I feel like I got to go with the statistics on this one. I think Zhou Guanyu has finished in P20 more than any other driver so far this season. And so I think he is the most likely to end up there.
All right. Very good. Interesting, we both got a Sauber coming home last.
That's not interesting. That's expected.
Yeah, I know. Rachel Fleming just rolled her eyes at us, and then, you know, now we're going to make her. She's going to watch their onboards just to spite us. But anyway, We look forward to hearing the report on the Sauber progress or lack thereof when we get to our review show. As always, so our prop bet, we tried to do something a little bit more unique. Last year, I think we did anyone from Team USA, and we called that was going to be Haas or Williams because they are technically owned by an American company, score points this weekend. So we did a little twist on it. We're not only going to have a point for does someone from Team USA, either Team USA score, but then you get an extra potential point. This could be pivotal through the course of the weekend. Who gets that point if you have them scoring? So, Cody, what's your thought on does Team USA bring it home a little bit in Las Vegas?
I do think we're going to get a U.S. team scoring in Las Vegas. I think that it's going to be Haas that's going to be getting that point or points. And more specifically, the driver I'm going to go with is Kevin Magnussen. I think he's going to be a little wild and crazy at the end of his career here, and he's going to get that point.
If you want to have somebody who's going to hang it out there, the K-Mag's your guy, that's for sure. I also I do think Team USA will be able to score a point. I do think the Haas form looks pretty darn good at the moment. Despite the fact that they're now behind Alpine, I think Haas are going to fight back. And I think they're actually going to get there probably by the end of the year or by the end of the season. But they're going to have to work for it. So because they're going to have to work for it, they're going to have to show their best. So I'm going to say yes to that. And I'm going to say Nico Hülkenberg is the guy who comes home with the top scoring point for the Haas team this weekend. So we shall see how that works and how that dynamic plays out over the course of the weekend. So those are our predictions. We'll lock them in and we'll review them in our review post-race. All right. So when and where can you find your sessions for this race? As I told you before we broke, think Japan, think Australia in terms of your time starts. It's probably the best way to prep. If you need to take a power nap, you might want to go do that. But Thursday and Friday do see actually some interesting primetime F1 spots, at least for some of the practices. So Thursday, action kicks off on track 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 8:30 p.m. Central. That's going to be on ESPN News or F1 TV. Practice 2, Friday, 1 a.m. Eastern, 12 a.m. Central. That is on ESPN2. Practice 3 will be Friday, 9:30, not 9:3:30, but 9:30. Fix that there. p.m. Eastern, 8:30 p.m. Central. That's on ESPN News. Qualifying kicks off Saturday, 1 a.m. Eastern, 12 a.m. Central on ESPN. And the race on Sunday, it is all on Sunday, will be 1 a.m. Eastern, 12 a.m. Central on big ESPN is where you will watch the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Cody, any final thoughts before we head into the last of the triple headers and we get this thing kicked off in earnest?
After last year's race, which was quite a banger, I do have a lot more confidence in how exciting this race is going to be this time around. And, who knows, it might be boring as hell, but at least there will be lots of lights and pizzazz to go with it. And who knows, maybe even a championship clinch to go with it.
Yeah, that is definitely very much on the cards. So we will, we're going to watch. We're going to come back. We're going to recap it all either Sunday night or Monday night. We haven't quite decided yet, but we're going to definitely work that out. But we will get a review up and going about all of the twists and turns of the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Las Vegas Grand Prix. I had this in my head. I was trying to do three things.
It's okay, you got it.
So, Viva Las Vegas. We will be back to recap it all. God, this track really does look like an upside down pig, but let's hope it cooks. So for Cody, it's been Andy. Gotta love it when F1's back, baby, and it's back in big time. So we'll see you after the race. And until then, may all your laps be fast.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Outlap F1 podcast. If you like what you heard, click that subscribe button and be sure to leave us a 5-star review. If you want to connect with us outside of the show, check out our website at www.outlapf1.com. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at OutlapF1 Podcast or email us at chatnow@outlapf1.com. As always, thank you so much for your support and we'll see you on the next one.